Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. As we know, recently Raven ended up putting out a brand new weapon tuning update that we weren't really expecting whatsoever. It had a recoil increase to the AUG, although that's not really the AUG's problem, so nothing really changed there. The loadout is still the same since nothing was drastically changed. The FFAR, though, also got a pretty big ADS nerf to it, which makes it a whole lot slower, which does actually end up changing the weapon's behavior and its effectiveness in those close and medium range fights. Obviously, for like the past few months, the FFAR has been the best close range weapon in the game. We've had this rifle that's been the best SMG in the game, kind of, backwards there. So today we're looking at the new FFAR loadouts and what you want to be using on certain classes. So if you enjoy the video at any point, or if you just find it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it. Let's go for 4,500 likes on this one. And of course, if you're new to the channel, or if you haven't already subscribed, I'm always covering the latest loadout info, new updates, intel, and everything like that. So feel free to subscribe with your notifications turned on. Now, like I said, this latest update for Warzone ended up nerfing the overall ADS speed on the FFAR, regardless of what attachments you're using. So no matter what you have on it right now, the FFAR is going to feel slightly different than before. It is going to feel like a slower weapon in basically all areas, which I would say is definitely a change that it needed. However, as I've said in previous videos, I don't necessarily think the speed of the FFAR was like the main issue, right? I would say that it's more so the damage in the TTK. That is what makes it so dominant right now, because even after this nerf to the ADS, the damage and the TTK are still the same. So when you land your shots, the FFAR is still going to fry. However, it's just going to be a tad bit harder to use because the loadouts are actually going to change up a decent amount compared to what we were using before. And of course, prior to this nerf, the recoil wasn't really a huge factor. Obviously, the speed wasn't a huge factor. The damage was nuts. So you had a weapon with a ton of pros, and now you have a weapon that's still got quite a few pros, just not as many as before. Now, we are looking at a handful of different loadout variations, you could say, with the FFAR. The first one here is going to be a sniper support setup, and of course, the FFAR and say like the CAR or the SPR together have been incredibly popular loadout combinations up until this point. I actually think the CAR and the FFAR was the #1 most used loadout all throughout Season 1. Now, it's still super effective, but when it comes to the FFAR portion of this loadout, you're definitely looking to use it in more close-range gunfights now than anything else. This particular setup is not going to be as good in those medium-range fights or longer because, one, it just doesn't have the ammo capacity to keep up with you missing a lot of shots like we would normally do in a longer-range fight. Then two, it doesn't have the same control as you would before with like a grip and different attachments like that. So this loadout initially features the infantry compensator, and there's actually a few reasons for this. It's not going to end up hurting your ADS speed like the agency silencer would, and it's also going to end up helping your vertical recoil still, actually a little bit more than the agency silencer would in this case, so you are gaining some control there. You are going to notice a bit more horizontal bounce, but if that's not something you're like a huge fan of, you could always swap this out for, say, the muzzle brake, which offers slightly less vertical control, but it doesn't end up hurting the horizontal control at all, so that's more so up to you, whatever you feel the most comfortable with. But like I said, personally, I'm a really big fan of the infantry compensator on this. It just feels good overall. I then also use the reinforced heavy barrel on this build in specific for some better range and velocity. I just feel like the numbers you get from this barrel are consistent enough to have the FFAR be, relatively competitive up close with no major cons, while also still being able to be decent in some of those medium range fights if you're able to land your shots. Then I've got the 38 round speed mag. This is pretty much my go-to magazine at this point since the 50 round fast mag just really isn't viable anymore. You could also use the standard 50 round mag, but your ADS is going to be pretty slow, so I wouldn't really recommend that one. But I would also avoid using the normal 38 round mag because personally, I'm just not really a big fan of the slower reload. I like having the faster reload, especially because you're reloading this so often, you're trying to use this up close, so chances are it's going to be some pretty hectic gameplay that you're involved in. That faster reload can ultimately save your life. After that, I've got the Serpent Wrap, which is going to end up increasing the ADS time a bit. It's not going to, entirely cancel out the recent ADS nerf, but it is going to make this build feel more like an SMG. And then finally, I've got the Raider stock on there as well for a better sprint to fire time, just to have a better mobility stat overall. Like I said, this is the most close range based FFAR build right now, so if you're looking for an SMG replacement, this is what I'd recommend. Now, this next loadout variation for the FFAR is one that I'd probably use with like the AUG or the M16 or the AMAX, for instance. It's going to be a nice alternative to help in those close and medium range fights. Personally, I feel like this one is a bit more stable in those medium range fights compared to the previous one. at least those medium range fights that are on the closer end of things, whereas anything that's in like the longer medium to really long range area, that of course is where you want to use the AUG or the AMAX or whatever other ranged weapon you've got on your loadout. Overall though, this is a pretty similar setup to the last one with one major difference. I still do have the infantry compensator on there for all the same reasons as before. Again, you could always swap this out for the muzzle brake though if you wanted. This time though, I've got the Ranger barrel on there for some better velocity. This does actually offer the largest velocity increase on the FFAR, so it's going to feel pretty strong in those close and medium range fights, but I've also felt like there's a bit more bounce on this one compared to the reinforced heavy. Maybe that's just a placebo effect, but because you are aiming for some more medium range fights with this one, having that better velocity can give you the upper hand in that engagement. It'll really allow you to be competitive with, you know, an AUG or an M16 in that situation. Then again, I've got the 38 round speed mag, the Serpent Wrap, and the Raider stock on there. All that stays the same here. Then for the final FFAR setup today, this one is basically aiming to be like the old FFAR, but in a way that keeps it decently fast. Again, I'd probably use this one with like the AUG or the M16 still as like that close range alternative. This one and the last one with the Ranger barrel are going to be pretty similar to one another in terms of where you want to use them. But starting with this loadout, I've got the agency suppressor on here. The only real downside to this is that you are going to be a bit slower when you're aiming down sights. Of course, we have the nerf taken into consideration, but then the agency does also decrease your ADS speed a tad bit as well, so it's not going to feel as snappy as the other ones, you could say. But of course, you get to keep that extra velocity and then also that suppression that you lose with the other two builds. So it's kind of a trade-off depending on what you want. You get that suppression and that better velocity, or you get that control and you get that speed. It just depends on what you want to have there. Then again, I've got the reinforced heavy barrel on this one. Like I said, I love that consistency. Then I've got the like standard final attachments, you could say, that are shared between all the loadouts, which are the 38 round speed mag, the Serpent Wrap, and then the Raider stock. Now, all these are going to be a bit harder to control because obviously we're not using a grip on these setups. Usually we have like the field agent grip on there to help with that control, but because that is going to slow us down, we end up opting for something else. So you're going to have to get used to that if you're running one of these loadouts. But after you get sort of past that, that entry barrier, if you will, it's going to be one of the best close range options we have. So yeah, there you have it. With all of that being said, those are the new best FFAR loadouts to run after the recent nerf, and that's going to wrap things up for today. If you enjoyed the video, or if you found it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it. And of course, if you're new here and you want to stay up to date with the latest Call of Duty news, intel, updates, loadouts, and everything else going on, feel free to subscribe with your notifications turned on. That way you'll always know whenever I upload a new video. As always, if you want to check out any of my partners, be sure to use code WhosImmortal for a discount on all Scuff, G Fuel, and Control Freak products. The links for all those can be found down in the description below. But once again, thanks so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.